Father in heaven, I'm grateful we can meet together tonight as a planning commission and as a community. Grateful for all that we have. We're grateful for the country that we live in and the freedoms that we enjoy here. Grateful for those who serve and protect our country, and grateful for their families and the sacrifice that's made. Please bless them, and pray that we may have a good meeting tonight. Pray that we can have a good spirit here and help us to make good decisions for the benefit of the community and those who live here. I'm grateful for all that we have. We say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, Commissioner Widdowson and Commissioner Severing for doing that for us. We have a few consent items that we need to discuss. First would be the approval of the minutes dated December 12th, 2024. Does anybody have any amendments that need to be made to those minutes?
Just the amendments that we made during the work meeting. Do you want me to go over those again, or did you get those? Okay.
I'll accept a motion to approve the minutes dated December 12th, 2024.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of December 12th, 2024.
I have a motion from Commissioner Severing. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Commissioner Widdowson. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next is the approval of minutes dated March 13th, 2025. Is there any questions or changes that need to be made on those minutes?
Just the last item on the vote, but we talked about that in our work meeting, so I think we're good.
I'll accept a motion to approve the minutes dated March 13th, 2025.
We'll make a motion to approve the planning commission minutes dated March 13th, 2025.
I have a motion from Commissioner Widdowson to approve the minutes. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Commissioner Prince. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next on to our action items for the day. First up is a conditional use permit request for Bryce Clark for an oversized structure totaling 1,730 square feet located at 4790 South, 5500 West. I'll turn some time over to staff for some comments.
Yeah, we got this application in and have reviewed it. It was, as you can see, for 1,700 square feet. It's an addition, 19 feet 6 inches in height for a pool house. So it'll be an enclosed pool. I don't know why this should give me a, there we go. That'll be the location there. It'll have a little connection area, and then it'll attach. No plumbing, and we have electricity. Yes, not used for business. Here's we checked all the setbacks. This being an enclosed pool, it goes with our accessory structure setbacks. It more than met those. It would have met otherwise, I think, as well, even without the accessory structure setbacks. And from those regards, everything good. I did bring up a couple items in work meeting that you guys are aware of that you probably want to discuss with the applicant just to get clarification on. But other than that, that's everything that staff had.
Thank you. Well, now, is there a representative from the applicant that is here that would come forward? Please state your name.
Bryce Clark.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Clark?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So we discussed in our work meeting a little bit about what our ordinance reads as far as the fencing requirements for a pool. And it's my understanding it's enclosed, but that there's some big bay doors that will be open. And I think the intent of the ordinance is just to make sure that this is not a safety issue. If your yard isn't fenced, is a neighbor child or somebody going to be able to wander in there and get into the pool? So can you kind of speak to what safety
For sure.
things you're going to put in place to
Yeah.
keep that from happening?
Originally, we weren't gonna put the structure over the pool and, you know, with the dust and the mosquitoes, the bugs and everything, we decided to. And so, we relocated where we're gonna put the pool, but I am putting a fence all the way around my structure. And so it will be in. I don't know if I'll have it totally enclosed because where I drive in, I want an automatic gate. And so I'm not sure how soon I'll have that in. But there is going to be a fence all the way around my whole property. As far as the garage doors that open, it's going to be just for use when we're in there to just kind of let the hot air in during the summer. So there was a few reasons why we're enclosing it. One, I already mentioned the bugs and the mosquitoes. We also, you know, realized that there's a lot of dust in Hooper with we love the field next to us and behind us and everything, but there is dust that kicks up when we thought we're gonna have a brown pool to swim in. And so that's another reason why we're enclosing it and putting garage doors on it. And so we can keep that enclosed. Another reason, you know, a kind of a big reason is so we can prolong our swimming season, and the energy efficiency inside when we're heating the pool was a big factor too. And so we decided to move forward and get that done as we do the pool. So.
Do you anticipate, or do you have an anticipated date or timeline as far as when that fence would go in to when the pool would be?
I'm working on the
Finished?
fence as the structure goes in. I'll have 3 sides all the way done, but the front fence, I want to do something different than chain link. And so I don't know. I don't have an answer to that.
Okay,
I hope to have it done by the end of the year, but I can't promise that.
okay, just so you're aware of the concern there. And
Yep.
the
Yeah,
other,
Sorry.
oh no, go for it.
One of the main concerns too was safety. And when I have grandkids and kids over, my wife has a big family with a lot of little kids. We want to make sure the pool cover is secure and things, but putting the structure over the top of it, we'll be able to lock the garage doors down, lock the door, and like nobody will get in. And they can go out in the backyard and play on the swing set and things, and we won't have to worry about the pool or getting under the cover. I don't, you know, it is a huge concern of mine too. So,
Okay,
yep.
great. One other thing, and you're fine with this right now from what the building inspector said, but we have an impervious surface ordinance. So you're getting a little bit close to that, just so you're aware if you decide to do
I
something
know, I
else,
was
just.
embarrassed when he brought it up to me because I have an acre. And so, you know, that much concrete and eventually I want to do asphalt. And so when he drew that up, he put the asphalt in even more than I'm going to be doing. And so I'll be just fine,
Okay.
even when I'm all said and done. So it made me
Okay.
feel really good about that. So.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions from the commission?
This height 19.6, that's accurate. I know the rest of them are pretty large.
Yeah, I messed up last time, if you guys remember, and had to come back. I hope I got it. I think I overshot it on this one. I think I'm gonna be just under 19 feet, but I put 19.6 to give it a little bit of play.
Did you get up to 25 without having to
Right.
come back? So
Yep. So I went to I just have preliminary plans, as you can see. But I went down to the truss factory and kind of talked to them, and, you know, last time when I messed up, I didn't factor in my foundation sitting out of the ground a foot. And so I think I did on this one, but you know what? I'll see you next month if I didn't, so. That fence is on the north side, so go back on the east side, but it won't, you got that garage there that you'll enter into, that's where it won't. Yeah, we'll have a few entrances. I will have, I've got 3 windows in the basement part of that garage. The middle window is going to become a door, so I'll have access to inside the pool area from inside there. But I'll also have a in addition to the garage doors, but an entry door to get in as well and out the back. So I can get out the back door or in the pasture area. But as far as fencing goes, yeah, there's a fence in on the east and the south. Practically done. There's a couple odds and ends. And then I've got poles in on the north side and nothing in the front yet. Did that answer all your questions? Okay.
Anybody else? Well, thank you.
Okay.
At this time, we'll now open this up to, we'll enter a public hearing to receive the public comment. If you come forward, please state your name, and you have 3 minutes to state your concerns or comment on this project.
Hi, I'm Kurt Campbell, 4904 South, 5500 West, and we're the neighbor. We have a prescriptive irrigation easement, the entire north side of his property. And I took a measurement today from my side of the fence, and the easement is just over 18 feet. So and my whole concern is it going to encroach on the irrigation ditch that's pre-existing and we got an easement for?
Staff, did they consider that easement when he came in for? Okay.
And that's where his building is running 18 feet. So it's right to the easement.
That's actually about 21 feet from the structure, and I'm 19 inches from the easement line on the closest. The easement, I've got a copy of that. It kind of goes on an angle, and so that's what I had to. I wanted the structure to be actually a little bit bigger, believe it or not. But with the easement there, I backed it off to 30 foot. Where I wanted to stretch it out is that 10-foot mark in between the units. I wanted to go to 12 feet, but I would be encroaching on. So we've got 19 inches to play with. And as far as an easement go, it is not a property line, it's an easement. I can be right on that line. Property line, I know I have to be off, but I'm about 21 feet from the property line to the structure. And that leaves me about 19 inches.
My issue is with the equipment going over the piped ditch. It was engineered to have 12 inches of dirt over top, and it's at grade as of since it was finished. So if he crushes the pipe with the equipment, what then?
So if he damages it, then I would assume he's responsible to fix it, right?
Well, that's what I'm clarifying.
Well, I don't know that this body.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
What I think we would want to be cognizant of and careful.
Well, and that's what I want to clarify now. We spent years in court over this deal. I would like to get something from today so we don't have to go through that all again. Well, so if the equipment that they bring in crushes the pipe, I shouldn't be held responsible to take him to court to get him to fix it, should I? So you, sure. Okay, okay. Okay, thank you.
That is actually one of the reasons I have not paved in front, because the big equipment coming around the other side. I was concerned about that pipe as well. I don't want big tractor looking excavating equipment and concrete trucks and things like that going over that ditch. So I'll have little tractors and maybe skid steers and things like that that can, it's a concrete pipe. It can definitely handle that, but I was concerned about the bigger equipment, so.
And I'm assuming that would be a insurance issue with your excavators if they damage it and all that. Like Brandon said, that's not
Yeah.
like a city
Yeah,
thing.
I'm getting the same excavator that I actually did my whole house and did the ditch as well. So he's full aware of what's in there. So.
Yeah.
Yep. And as far as the easement line, I did have my engineer come and string that out because it's like, it's not straight. And so I strung it and then marked it all out. I'm off of it. So that's not a concern.
I guess the flip side of what I said earlier.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. I know what the easement is and, you know, it is on my property and it's an easement. And so I can't build over the top of it. And if I damage anything, of course, I'm held responsible for what's under there. And so I'm full aware of that and that's not a problem. Mm-hmm. Yep, yep. No, we're good.
Thank you. Any other public comment? I'll now close the public hearing and proceed back to the regular meeting. I'll now return to the Planning Commission for discussion and a motion on this conditional use permit for Bryce Clark for an oversized structure totaling 1,730 square feet located at 4790 South, 5500 West.
I think it looks good.
I agree.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the conditional use permit for Bryce Clark for his oversized structure of 1730 square feet located at 4790 South, 5500 West.
We have a motion made by Commissioner Greener to approve the conditional use permit for Bryce Clark for an oversized structure totaling 1730 square feet located at 4790 South, 5500 West. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Oh, go for it, Bryce. You got it.
Second from Commissioner Widdowson. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. On to our next action item is a rezone request for Terra Strata LLC located approximately at 5500 South, 4700 West. The request is for rezoning of a property from low-density residential to commercial C2 and a residential mixed-use plan unit residential. I will turn some time over now to staff for a presentation.
Staff doesn't have much in terms of comments, just a couple items. I think that there was a productive work meeting regarding this one and staff has, been agreeing and talking. This is a commercial development that's new to staff as well. So we're kind of fielding this application the best we can. I do think an important note and discussions I've had with the developer that we'll need to execute a development agreement and some type of developers agreement. I think that can take place as, as part of their rezone and something that we can consider in light. I think that could mitigate some of the, we can build that out with the help of city council. But the other thing here that we just kind of wanted to reiterate is we'd hope that planning commission can have a productive conversation and help identify the type of zoning that will be recommended to city council, if any, which apply, what applies in our general plan or what you guys may want to request be maybe recommend be approved or opening of our general plan. So really not a ton of comments from staff, just that, we're hoping to be able to move this one in a productive manner. And I think that, we'll definitely have some opportunity to build out some development agreements to orchestrate, you know, the construction and the look and aesthetics and appeal of the development. So.
Thank you, Malcolm. Now bring this back to, well, first, is there an applicant from Terra Strata that could come forward and answer questions and kind of explain your application here?
Yes, Brett Wallen with AWA, representing Terra Strata and the rezone request. Appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. I'm going to hand you out just some background. I'm 67. I turned 67 this year. When I was 29, I was the city manager for Woods Cross City, a community that was kind of going through some of the same challenges that you have. And the reason I kind of reference that is just really, as I read through the vision of the community and the general plan, I think it's pretty clear. I think maybe there's some inconsistencies over time with maybe making some changes with the ordinances and so forth that are a little bit inconsistent with the general plan. As I've reviewed it, our application meets the intent of the general plan. LRB did the fiscal analyst for the city that Terra Strata has paid for that document. They concurred that as well. They've indicated that it's a net positive fiscal impact. I actually was prepared to go through some of the highlights of this. I'm not sure that how productive that is. I mean, I'm glad to do it if you want me to. But I think as I look at this project, this is a significant project for the community. I know when I was at Woods Cross City, those types of projects were significant. And as we took on those types of projects, the community flourished and had funding and opportunities to make a difference in their community, in their citizens' lives. I will say that just in general, that Stuart Adams is running a little bit behind with one of the functions that he was attending. He will be here shortly. But we've had significant discussions relating to this. We're very open if the commission is interested in recommending us to the city council. We're very open to working on a development agreement. I think that's typically the best way to solve for some of those inconsistencies between the general plan and the ordinances, is to work through it that way. But we're open to work through it however you guys deem that we need to work through it. We are very anxious to put this rezone in place so that we can start working on the project. Really, I'll stand for questions unless you'd like me to go through some of these highlights. It's all, the document that I provided is all out of your general plan. It's just some narratives that have come out of comments out of the general plan. So if that's helpful. The other thing I will say is there's some information in here on affordable housing. I think probably if you go in about 7 or 8 pages in, maybe a little further, it looks like this sheet here. And I don't know if you can see that from there, but it kind of goes through some affordable housing calculations. And I would say the calculations we have for a home price of $413,000 with a 65% loan, meaning the homeowner would need to put 35% down payment, which is about $145,000. The total monthly costs for that are $2,416 a month. And the calculation above, is looked at what's affordable based on the median income. And that was affordable, okay? But as you get bigger lots and more expense, the affordability component diminishes. So I think that was really one of the highlights as far as the residential side goes. Really, I'd stand for questions if that would be the most productive time.
Yeah, I actually think the questions would be, but thank you for the document, and I think it's good information to have to see how this project could help fulfill the general plan's goals. And so I'll now turn some time to the commission to ask some questions that I might have for you.
Can you restate what that purchase price was on that affordable housing number that you came up with, the 65% LTV?
Yeah, it's the actual home price or the affordability?
Well, I know you mentioned, it was a 400 and something $1,000 number. 413. Is it? Oh, it's on the next page. I was on the,
Sorry,
keep going. Okay.
it's that top one.
Okay, got it.
That's green there.
Okay. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure I had that written down. I didn't know it was that far in.
And I will say in today's market, that is a huge challenge. I mean, affordability in housing is at the state level, everywhere, every community we go into, it's having the same challenges. How do we make affordable housing affordable?
So I have a couple of questions. In the PUD section on the map, what is your intent for that? I've heard patio homes, I've heard condos and townhomes. I'm just curious what the intent is.
We really haven't planned on any condominiums. We would be open to some townhomes if the city doesn't want townhomes. We're willing to not do townhomes. I think that's where the development agreement could really be helpful, is to define that. Patio homes has been discussed, and I think initially when we started working with city, it was actually some time ago, and staff's turned over since then, but I think staff had actually had some lot layouts and some ideas they had, and that's kind of where we started and kind of worked our way back to where we are at this point in time. But I think two things of significance. One is to that, if we look at tax increment and an RDA or a CRA, the number of lots become important to be able to fund the lift station. And I think that's outlined in the LRB study, probably better than what we could do. They're indicating a $2 to $3 million expense. It looks like there were a couple bids in there. I think the lower one was just under $2 million. But I think when we look at the general plan, and it's indicating a variety of residential opportunities to serve your citizens, we see that as really important and want to provide a mix of units where we can. And we're willing to work with the city to get that done.
So you had applied for a PUD zoning in that area. And if you look in our ordinances, we have a patio designation and then we have a PUD. And I'm wondering if the patio designation might fit better with what you're doing. One of the thoughts that I had, let me just read this to you. There's some density restrictions that currently, the way our ordinance reads, you have to have 40% of the overall zoning area that is considered open space. And it doesn't include roadways or anything like that. And
for the PUD?
For the PUD zone.
Okay.
And so if you that's around 15 acres, and if I'm calculating it correctly, 40% would be 6 acres. So then that would leave you 9 acres. And I think you have around 90 units that you were wanting to put in that zone. So in the patio designation, it gives the option for some discernible bonus density. I think that it's up to the city council, but there's things that you can do so that you can increase that density in there. One of them is moderate income housing, if you bring that in line. So I'm just curious if the commission recommended that we do this, you do this as a patio zone and put in some patio homes, and it says in our ordinance that one of the distinctions of that is to help retired people. Would that be something you would be open to if it fell into that moderate income housing like what you've, I don't know if this will qualify for that because they have to have a 65% loan to value, it sounds like, but as far as on that home price, if that would tick that box on moderate income housing, would that be something that you would be willing to consider?
Yes, I think in speaking with Stuart, he's very willing to consider those elements. I think some of the challenge is when we've talked about it in the past, age restricting, like I know you discussed that earlier. We want to make sure that there is inventory for those retiring people, but to age restrict it across the board would kind of work against trying to provide other opportunities for other income levels and age groups. And so trying to figure out exactly how to work around that. To your point, I think one thing that could be done to meet the code would be to consider it all as a PUD with different size lots. And I think that makes a lot of sense. So the half acre and third acres lots could all be part of the PUD as well. So we're very, very willing to work with you and try to come up with the right solution and the thing that's going to fit best and really be able to generate the income required to solve the infrastructure needs of Upper City.
So you mentioned third acre and half acre. Right now you've got quarter acre and half, and our zoning doesn't currently allow for any more quarter acre lots unless they abut quarter acre lots, an R4 zone that's already in place. When Mr. Adams was here before, he mentioned that you guys might be open to doing third acre instead of quarter acre. Is that something you would?
That's the discussion, yes.
Okay.
I think when I read the plan, and that's where the general plan seems to indicate a vision, and then the ordinance seemed to be tweaked at some point. It sounds like it's not, the word not in use is where some of those inconsistencies maybe have arrived. And it seems like what's maybe happened is modifying the ordinances to try to solve a zoning issue. And so I think that's where a development agreement can really be helpful in trying to clear up those issues.
Yeah, I think that particular ordinance relating to the R4 zone was in place before we recently redid our general plan. So that may be why there could be some discrepancy, but yeah, because this goes back clear, it references August 15th, 2013. And it states that R4 zones created by this paragraph will be allowed only if the property owned by one owner as of August 15th, 2013 directly abuts, adjoins property zoned in R4 as of August 15th, 2013. So I'm assuming that's around when that happened. And we redid our general plan in like 2020 to 2021 in there. We were working on it. So
Makes sense.
probably, yeah.
Other questions?
I know the study that LRB did contained a CRA, but would Terra Strata be willing to pursue like a PID if that benefited in to fund that lift station requirement?
Yeah, I think they're willing to consider it. I don't know the answer to it. So I don't know that I can speak as we haven't done significant research on it to see financially how that would work out. And it doesn't really work out, but we're willing to explore it.
Thank you. And then I know in the application, there's some open space. Would you consider building a rec building or something that would mirror the feel of Hooper City, kind of like we have over here in Green Acres with the silo recreation building that have a pickleball court and a building that can be rented out? Would you be willing to put something like that in your?
Yeah, and not knowing exactly what I'm committing to, that's a hard,
And I'm not trying to
and
pigeonhole.
especially where it's not my money, but
I
that's a
think-
little easier actually.
I think it goes more to being able to use some of the open space for some of
Yeah.
amenities for the planned development. You know what I mean?
We had we had anticipated if it was a PUD and that we were, as we've proposed this, that we would have PUD type amenities, which typically would include, either a small park or some type of amenities in that shape and fashion.
Thank you.
If the city does approve this, would we have any input on the other types of businesses that you're putting in there? I know at one time they were trying to get some feedback on, if somebody wants a Chick-fil-A or if somebody wants something like that. Is that something that is still on the table, or do you already have people lined up?
We don't have anyone lined up. It's premature at this point to have any lined up. I know that, Terra Strata, and there are certain, businesses that like to chase this type of development around. So they know if there's a Smith's Marketplace going in, they want to be first on the list. And we have people that are on that list, but we've made no commitments. And, Stuart has indicated at our last meetings that if you have specific businesses you would like us to target, that we will go after those businesses. We can't commit that we can 100% get those done, but we will make that effort and try to make that financially feasible.
So McDonald's is listed on the plan that we received. Is that for sure? Or have we already just, okay,
No,
that's good.
So let me tell you, I have a little Vietnamese guy that helps me with all my plans, and he's amazing. But sometimes he forgets to take the names off.
Okay.
So those are placeholders that they put on. And I think the latest ones we sent, we took those off, so we apologize. But we have none. What I can tell you is that the International Shopping Center Convention is scheduled in May. If we knew that we had something going forward, we could start working on those entities that could participate in this project, and we would love your list.
I know I have another question about the CRA. From the numbers that I've looked at, I'm not a big fan of the CRA. If it is something that ends up going through, my understanding is that the developer can go out, obtain the funds to do those improvements, whether you do a bond or something like that, and then that money is paid back to you over the duration of the CRA. Is that your understanding? I want to make sure that if that happens, the city is not on the line for that.
When I was working for Woods Cross City, I was also the redevelopment director. Small cities, you do a lot of different things, right? Actually really enjoyed it. And the redevelopment agency is a unique tool. I really do like what they have at their disposal to be able to solve issues like what you're dealing with currently. The RDA Act is the way I call it, CRA, has evolved over time, and it's changed, and it cycles up and down. Right now it's in a pretty good place. The opportunities are, one, the city could go out and bond for it, and the tax increment could repaid that way, or the agreement could be that the developer would actually go get the funding and make that happen. And then he would basically, I call it a rebate. That's probably the easiest way. He's paying, the project's paying the taxes, and those are rebated back until they're paid off for the commitment that's made between the developer and the city.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
sure. Yep, it does.
And I personally, I prefer that to a PID, but I think it could be a combination of the two. It could be a lot of different things. And I think exploring those would be interesting.
Yeah, from the little bit of research that I've done, I don't care for either, but I prefer the CRA over the PID as well, but.
Yeah, I mean, the PIDs are really pretty new. We've been involved with a couple of them, and really hasn't been enough time to really see how they play out. But the RDA's got a lot of history, and they've been very successful.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll bring this back to Planning Commission for discussion.
So I was hoping we could talk a little bit about the LRB fiscal impact analysis. We didn't get an opportunity to really discuss this as a commission or ask questions of the firm that did it. So I'm hoping we can kind of go through and just talk about some of the concerns or questions that we had, things we liked, things we didn't like. One of the, I guess, the main things to me that stood out is, you know, when we had the meeting back in August, we were given kind of an estimate, and obviously it wasn't, can't hold them to be an exact thing because we didn't have the fiscal impact analysis at the time. But we were told to estimate close to $500,000 a year in revenue. And the result of this fiscal impact analysis on page 4, you go off of the net present value. This is over the duration of 25 years to Hooper City, $4,328,299, which ends up being $173,131 a year. That's best case when you consider that's having us do a CRA where Hooper's obligation is only the small, minuscule property tax that we receive off of that area. When Weber County came in last year, and also when LRB's representative was here, they mentioned that it was probable that Hooper would be asked to contribute more so that we had more skin in the game. When you look at what the state and what these other, what the other entities, Weber County, the school district, what they're being asked to contribute to this, chances are high that we would need to put in more, which would mean our sales tax revenue and possibly our municipal energy tax. Both of those were mentioned. So if you go to the very last page of the study, the first year that this project would go in, based on these estimates, without Hooper having to contribute more than what they've already put in there for that small amount of property tax, we would lose $10,375 the first year. We would lose an additional $33,644 the second year. We would lose $56,875 the third year, for a total of $100,894 loss the first 3 years. Starting in the fourth year, we would generate around $269,657, and it would stay close to that until we got to 2038. My concern is how much more, if these other entities, like the school district, the fire district, if they decide they are not going to participate. I had asked LRB if Hooper's portion would go up, and they said that that is a possibility. One of the other things that I have a concern about is the estimate in there for the lift station from JUB is like $2.3 to $3 million. I asked LRB if that entire thing was included in these numbers as far as the CRA, and they said that it was, which means that the public, the taxpayer dollars, would be funding 100% of this lift station. And we have other developers who have developed in Hooper who don't have by any means the money available to them that this developer has, who have had to put in a lift station on their own dime. I don't feel that it's fair for Hooper City and these other districts, other entities, to pay for that lift station when this hasn't been done for others. And I realize there is a financial benefit to having this project go in, but it's not the benefit that was presented to us. $173,000 is not that much money. And there's a risk because we will be in the negative the first several years. We will not be receiving that income. So what do we do? In our last budget meeting, it was presented that we've got, you know, problems with our sewer, problems with public works. I think it's a risk for us to go further into debt by doing something like a CRA. If we're not involved in doing the CRA, then I feel like this could possibly be something that would be more of a benefit. Especially, I know some of us have talked here and there, the fact that I think right now Hooper has a city council, and I would say the majority of the council and commission really care about honoring that general plan and keeping Hooper rural. But we do have expenses and we need some sort of revenue. I think we need to be really careful the decision we make, because if we turn away something like this because we feel like we want to stick to that 3/4 acre lot and we hold out for that, what happens a couple of years down the road when we may have other city council people in, we may have other commissioners in who don't care at all, and we'll fill it up with apartments. And so I think that we have to really take into consideration the positives and the negatives of this. And I think that there's definitely some pluses. I mentioned the idea if we had something in there like a retirement community, where I know that there's a lot of older people that have lived in Hooper and they want to stay living in Hooper, but they can't do stairs. And so maybe they get a 1-level home on one of these smaller lots so that the developer gets more profit. There's a little bit higher density, but the demographics of that community would be where, you know, people in that stage of life generally live there the rest of their lives. There's lower crime. They would be within walking distance or driving distance to a grocery store and a gas station. I can see the benefit, the appeal of that. I also think it's important, you know, we had someone from the ombudsman's office come and talk to us about training, and he focused a lot. I printed out transcript of what he said, but he focused a lot on the general plan and how important that is. It's the guiding document of your city. Your ordinances, your zoning should all be in line with that general plan. And he specifically said, if you're going to change it, it needs to be in line with what the majority of the citizens want. I don't know for sure how people feel. We really wanted to try and get a lot of feedback. I know, you know, we had the one public hearing, and if you go off of that, you know, we had a lot of comments. I went through and typed them up. There were 17 that showed up that were against it. Plus they brought in 63 signatures. So 80 people against based on this one meeting. 8 for, 3 were property owners and 1 was a non-resident. And then there were 4 comments that were either neutral or they approved of the Smiths, but they didn't want the higher density housing. And I think that it's important. We've had a lot of people express that they want us to respect that general plan. They want us to uphold it. But I also think we have to be realistic and look down the road and see what costs are facing us and what could happen if we don't make a decision when we have some control and some say in what happens. So those are some of my thoughts.
Any other comments?
That's what I was the concern that I've had from the beginning is that I feel like if we approve this, we need to have some sort of contingency on it for make sure the Smiths and the commercial goes in. I don't want to have this housing go in high density. We're giving up the high density housing to get the commercial. So I don't want to have the housing go in and then have them say, the economy, you know, well, maybe down the road we'll add the commercial. I feel like we need to have some sort of stipulation or something that,
But wouldn't that come in in the developer's agreement? Because
yeah, I'm just saying that's something I feel like we should list in our recommendation today and have it on record.
I agree. One thing I forgot to mention, if you look at the top of page 50, no, actually it's the top of page 10, I think. It talks about how this supports an increase in population growth for Hooper to about 14,000 residents by 2030. We are currently around 9,400, I think, from the numbers that I pulled up. That's a 50% increase in our population. So you take into account that we have Kent's and Winco and Weinigers, and now we're gonna have 2 Walmarts and a Smith's in West Point. Albertsons and Macy's were on 1800. They didn't have the business to sustain them and they went out of business. So one of my concerns is if we have 14,000 people as our projected population, is that reasonable? And what's going to happen if we put this in and it's not generating the tax revenue? Then is there going to be more of a push? Well, you need to build more houses, and residential is never going to bring in money. It's going to be a bigger drain on our city. So maybe that's something else that we need to take into consideration. Another reason why I really like the idea of the retirement community, I don't think they're going to be driving. I don't think they're going to be putting as much wear and tear on our roads as what a different demographic would. And so just one other thing I wanted to mention.
Well, I think it's important too, if we get on top of this, because we all know West Davis corridor is coming regardless. And so that's gonna increase our city as far as development threefold the way it has further south. So maybe we get on top of it now and control some of that.
It's hard because we're going to have a way to get on there. 5,500
Yeah.
and 4,000 is what they've projected, at least unless things have changed.
Well, when that comes through, Hooper, as we know it, will no longer exist.
I think it depends. I think it depends on if we give them a reason to.
That road's gonna come through and we're gonna become, well, yeah, those of us that live west of 59 will be west of the tracks, if you will, versus east of the tracks. That scares me more than anything else, is that road. So
I know when they put in place the municipal energy tax, Councilmember Hill had suggested doing a property tax instead, which I know nobody wants to hear that. But I've thought about, this is significantly going to change Hooper. It will. There's no question. But if we were to, I'm just curious. I've had people say I would rather pay an extra $100 a year on my property taxes than have something like this go in and change, everything around. Like it's not going to be Hooper anymore.
But even at $100 more, you're still only raising the $100,000 that you said was insignificant in the other.
It's like 250,000, I think, if you go off of household.
How many households?
But-
How many houses are there?
But like,
There's around 2,500, but not all of them are probably property owners. And so all I'm saying is I want to make sure that
I agree. There's pros and cons to everything you do, but I think what Blake said is true. That road is coming and Hooper is changing. We have a limited amount of time to get in front of this. We're in a severe budget crunch. And if we don't, we're going to be stuck with, if we go bankrupt, with Weber County making our decisions on what they're going to allow and what they're going to build. So I do think we have to be forward looking and have to have some trade-offs that we're willing to do. As I reviewed the proposal that they submitted and compared it to the general plan, I think it fits a lot of the mixed use residential that they have. We mock at the $100,000 that on the low end on this best case scenario, but the fact is the matter, we don't have a main street and we don't have businesses. A mom and pop shop isn't going to be able to buy land in Hooper and build their restaurant and make it because the land cost is just too high. Or they would have done it already. So I think there's an opportunity. You have a large anchor store that brings with it, I think, more chance of success for those additional retail partners that they can enhance and bring that success. Without that anchor, I think those smaller retail businesses are more likely to fail on their own than with that anchor. So I think I agree with your points as like the LRB study. It's hard to put together numbers and say, this is what it's going to be and what, that's their best guess. But I don't think we can mock it like, oh, this is $100,000. I think the fact of the matter is we need to try to get as much retail quality growth that we can get, and we're probably gonna have to do the tax increase as well to meet our needs. I think that's the reality. So I don't think we can just turn down like good proposals and not even give city council an opportunity to go and meet and try to work out something that would make sense for the city and sense for the developers and sense for the residents. I think that's our duty, to give that opportunity to the city council and the residents of Hooper to go through that process and see if it meets any of those needs, because the reality is the budget is tight and it's only going to get tighter.
I agree. I agree with you in the regard that an anchor store, I think, is going to help those smaller businesses to flourish more and to possibly last longer. But having said that, I'm just not convinced that putting more commercial in is not going to just result in us having more cost down the road. And I think you can look at other cities around us and what happens when an anchor store like this goes in, the entire thing does fill up with commercial. And the balance is that what we want for Hooper, if you truly look at the sentiment expressed in our general plan, I mean, there's a strong
sentiment is
desire
like
for
a-
wanting to keep it
a
rural,
Main Street, right? Like-
Sorry, go ahead.
There's a sentiment, like you mentioned the sentiment, and that's important. Without even giving them an opportunity to go to city council, they don't even have a chance to say, hey, this is how we want to make this match the city plan. This is, look, we want to do this with we want to have these type of businesses, just like they said. They can't guarantee it, but at least they will try to keep that rural city. The fact of the matter is everybody wants it rural, but we have people coming in here every week to city council complaining that my neighbor's doing this. People move to the country because they don't want anybody to know what they're doing. But that's not Hooper anymore. It's changing. And I think we have a limited amount of time with the budget to make decisions that could hopefully put our city in a position that we're able to guide these development decisions rather than just be backseat accepting what somebody else might be pushing down the pipe with our land use decisions.
Well, and I don't think I'm not advocating that we just flat out deny this. I recommend a denial. It's not our place to deny it. But I think if we make a recommendation, it needs to be done wisely. And I think we need to put in the suggestions that will help to safeguard what we have as much as possible. I think that the CRA, everything I've seen on this, I do not think that that's a good idea. I don't feel like Hooper or the other districts involved should be footing the bill for that when other developers who have not had the means that this developer have done that. And to me, the financial benefit, we're losing that. If we do a CRA, we could be losing it even more than what's in this study if Hooper is asked to contribute even more. And I just don't see that as being a feasible option for us.
Yeah. And the other developments, I don't think brought a large commercial opportunity with them when they have footed their infrastructure bill either. I think, yeah, that's the balancing act. I get your point of we don't want to treat people differently, but they have a portion of this development is different because it brings that commercial and
Show me the benefits when we're talking 173,000, and this is not just Smith's, it's the entire project. And that's with us only contributing a small amount to the CRA. What if that amount increases and we're not getting hardly anything? But
What if
we've
it
changed our
decreases?
whole. I think we have to plan worst case, right? I mean, we have to take that into
what if they do a
consideration.
PID? What I'm saying is like, you can't just say the study's there and it says it would be fiscally impactful. What businesses came here and said, we're going to give the city $100,000?
Who's giving us $100,000?
What commercial development has come to say, hey, I want to develop commercially here and the city's going to benefit $100,000 in the past 4 years?
I thought the trade-off is they're getting higher density housing. Why do we have to have high density housing plus lose money for the first 4 years?
Right. Okay, so yeah, the trade-off is that is a trade-off, right? Like you give them higher density housing to bring this development into place, right? But you're arguing the fact of like, we can't deny that we're in a budget crisis in Hooper, that we have more infrastructure projects than we can meet in the next 10 years, even with this project. So my question is, on the trade-off is what commercial businesses come to Hooper that's going to generate $100,000 in revenue? Because we'll go off this number because that's the study that we have.
Well, I mean, I would say we've talked about this highway coming through. If this particular developer feels like this is a good place, I think there's a lot of others that probably feel like it's a good place too. My thing is, if we've got all of these grocery stores, why do we need another grocery store when maybe there's some other ideas? I realize this is what's on the table. And that's why I mentioned earlier, if we pass on this now and hold out, we could just have a situation where the whole thing fills up with apartments. I went to the town hall of our representative last year, and they talked about how the goal is to start focusing higher density housing near access to transportation. So the writing's on the wall. There's a lot of open space on this corridor. And it could fill up with apartments, and I don't think any of us want that. So I think, yeah, this is something that we need to look at. I'm just saying, if we do it, I'm not in favor of doing the CRA. That wipes out the benefit that it's bringing to us in the first place. I think that other developers have had to foot the bill for the lift station. It's not just this developer that will be tying into this. There are several in that area that will tie into it as well. And I think that cost could be shared. When we had the meeting back in August, I had asked Mr. Adams if he would be, willing to contribute to that lift station. And he said, absolutely, anybody that ties into it should be contributing. So I feel that if we make a recommendation for approval, we should include in that we do not participate in a CRA. And that the higher density housing aspect of this, the only way I would be in favor of something like that would be if it was a retirement type community that would be a benefit to our city and to our older residents.
Whether it's. Okay.
Those are just my thoughts.
Yeah, right. I agree with you that I think if you pass on this now, it might be detrimental down the future. How the process gets done, I just don't want to handicap the city council in any way saying, hey, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do that, but go ahead and try to get the development done. I would want them to be able to make the best decision that they feel, and they're the people they represent, as they're the elected officials, to be able to make that decision, whether they want the CRA, they want a PID, what best benefits the city. I feel like that should be their decision, not based off of our recommend. I mean, we're making the recommendation for the land use change, not necessarily on what fits, because I'm not an expert in the CRA, and it very well could fail. Or cost the city money. I acknowledge that, but based on the study, the numbers that we have, it benefits the city. And that says that maybe our portion is better. I just don't want to handicap based on a recommendation to say, hey, you have to do it this way with one arm tied behind your back.
Well, the city council ultimately will make that decision. So this is just a recommendation based on the research that we've hopefully done as a body and what we feel like would be in the city's best interest. But ultimately, we are just a recommending body. We don't get to say. I just think that there are certain parameters, if we recommend an approval, that need to be put in place. And I agree with Sheldon that the anchor store needs to be done first before the residential. I think that safeguards the city. I think that I already mentioned about the CRA. There's a couple of other things, and I've got to collect my thoughts. I've got notes that I've written here, but things that I think need to be taken into consideration if we move forward this. And truthfully, I don't know how we can make a recommendation to approve. I think we can table based on the fact that our ordinances currently don't support what they're wanting, unless, I don't know a way around that. We generally haven't sent stuff up to the council unless it's.
I love these microphones. I think what our ordinance says is what Malcolm mentioned in the work meeting. I think it contemplates if a zoning request potentially goes outside what the general plan allows, then you are allowed to make a recommendation that the city council consider that, right? I mean, obviously the applicant is saying, no, we feel like it fits within the rezone, it already fits within the general plan. Either way, whether you feel like it does or doesn't, I think you can make whatever recommendation. If you make a recommendation on it to move it forward, you could say, take a look at that and make the decision. If you feel like, because that's right in our ordinance says, you can say, hey, if you feel like it needs the general plan to be looked at, do it. You can do that in this meeting. You don't have to have them come back and make that application separately. I mean, so I think you can cover a lot of those contingencies with the recommendation that you make, and at the same time, not, you know, prohibit them from looking at all options. I think you could say something like, okay, you know, we recommend approval based on looking at the following things. Hey, take a look at this CRA and how that impacts, and take a closer look at the housing, take a look, I mean, that's what they want, right, is recommendations.
Sure.
And then ultimately, they're gonna make the decision.
So even if the zone that they have requested is not currently in use in our code, we don't have it in our code anymore, we could say, we recommend approval with the stipulation that they have to be in line with what our ordinances are.
Sure, and so then the city council could take a look at that, and if they need to change an ordinance, they can change an ordinance.
Okay.
You know,
Any other comment on the from the commission?
Second, sorry. Get my stuff in order. Any comments?
I was curious on planning commission's thoughts. If you did a patio home, it talked about, you know, it could restrict it to certain demographics like 55 plus communities. What's your guys's feeling on other potential uses of patio development? Would you all kind of really like to see a 55
Well, I
plus
don't know.
community,
I
or-
don't know. In my opinion, I don't know if I'd restrict it to 55. We already have one of those. We also have approved a ton of AUDs that are basically a small patio home, if you will, and they're not restricted in age, you know what I mean? I just think if you do this bring this up to the city council, we try everything we can to get affordable. You know, there was a deal in the legislature, Governor Cox talked about, what do you have, 200 million? He wanted to build X amount of homes. Can we get the price point? I think the biggest thing is, can we get the price point where it needs to be so that more people can get in a house? I mean, that's my thought.
I would prefer to see, give up that quarter acre and half acre or third acre, whatever they're doing, do it all 55 and older. I'd be on board with that.
In the PUD?
The
Patio
entire
homes,
thing.
the whole thing. All of the rest of the ground that's not part of the Smiths.
I wouldn't want to see it restricted if they wanted to do it all patio, all in the PUD. I'm okay with that. I like the matching up. I think it kind of insulates the project around it a little bit, insulates those houses butting up against it. Those people that are coming and buying those lots around the edges, they know exactly what they're getting, where they're buying. I don't think I'm just I like less rules and I don't like restrictions. So, and I don't think that's my place. So I would prefer a non-restricted patio home community.
I think the demographics of having the entire thing be for a patio home, 55 and older community. Again, I think you're going to have less traffic. I think you're going to have less crime. I think you're going to have those surrounding neighbors. I would think they would welcome that type of a community. If we go ahead and do this and we change the general plan, I think there has to be some compromise, and I think we have to take into consideration the people that live around there too, not just around there, in all of Hooper. And I think this is something that was expressed, that I think there's a need for it. Yes, Blake mentioned we already have one of those communities, but I think there's a lot of people that would be interested in this for their parents, for themselves. And as I mentioned earlier, in that on the patio home zone and the PUD zone, both, it talks about that 40% of the zoning area that has to be open space. But if the developer went out after a patio designation for zoning rather than the PUD, there is that potential that they can have discretionary bonus density put in place that the city council would have to determine that. But if they put those homes in and they were in that moderate income housing level, which apparently, I mean, all of us want, for our kids or for our older people or whoever, that would tick that box for the city. It would provide housing for our senior citizens where they could stay in Hooper. It would be higher density for the developer. I just feel like that would be more of a win situation.
And it's not just for people that live in Hooper. I mean,
Right.
we could be a place that people in the whole county or northern Utah come to retire if we make that what Hooper's about.
But isn't that the job of the city council? If we approve a rezone, then I think it's up to the city council to get with the developer and say, okay, you've been rezoned for C2 and some mixed use. Let's sit down and come to an agreement on what that mixed use looks like and what we as a city want to see. And then, I mean, just because we vote for a rezone, maybe Terra Strata comes back, the city council puts so many restrictions on the low density residential that Terra Strata says, you know what, I know we got it rezoned, but this isn't gonna work. Or is there a give here, is there a take there? I think our deal we have to look at tonight is, are we willing to approve a rezone request and move it up to the city council to say, hey, as a planning commission, we think this could work with some different ideas and different concepts maybe that Terra Strata hasn't looked at, but maybe we as a city council have looked at. But our purpose here, in my opinion tonight, is, are we going to let them rezone it to C2 and mixed use, and then the city council takes it from there and says, hey, this is what, if we're doing this, this is what, how we want it done. That's,
Well, I think we are the planning commission, emphasis on planning. And I don't think there's anything wrong with adding additional thoughts, constraints into our recommendation. Just saying, yep, approved, doesn't give the whole picture on the point of us being on the planning commission and the reason for us all to be here to, put our minds together and come up with things and our thoughts and the feedback we've got from all the citizens on what is good for Hooper. So I think boiling it down to just a yes or no isn't really beneficial even to the city council, because they benefit from the additional information we give or additional recommendations. we
no,
give on-
and Brandon made that comment. He says, you can put that in your recommendation, that you look at this and you look at that, so that we give them the ideas, I guess, the planning ideas, if we go, yeah.
Sorry, Commissioner Wilson, did you want to answer staff's question on the 55 and older?
I don't know if I have the real hard opinion one way or another on it yet. I'd almost like to see where things come back at, let's it's hard to make any kind of opinion with generic information. So I guess I don't have an opinion yet to answer your question. Sorry.
Thanks. I think also with that conditions is we can say we don't want a CRA and all this stuff, but we have to also acknowledge that change is coming. And if we don't take the opportunity to do some of these developments right now, because maybe there has been or there hasn't been, but there hasn't been one previous to the last meetings that I watched the last 4 years that have come that would give the city this type of opportunity to generate revenue. Not saying that they're not coming, but they just haven't yet approached us. And I think you have to balance both of those recommendations when you're thinking of saying, well, I don't want to do this. I recommend not that. Like you have to weigh the impact of both of those comments as you make that recommendation.
I think it's important that we balance out when we're making a decision, that we're not making it out of fear, that we're trying to focus as much as we can on the data. And I realize there's a lot of talk that Hooper's in trouble. And, you know, I know we've had talk about garbage and sewer increasing. Those are pass-through fees that are coming from the entities that charge those fees. In addition, I know we have a sewer system that needs to be kept up and it's unique, and there's definitely things that need to be addressed with that. The city implemented a municipal energy tax that was supposed to generate $480,000 a year. I'd like to know where that's going. I haven't noticed in the budget meeting where they've talked about exactly where that has gone to. I think that $480,000, that's significantly more than what this is going to generate, and at no risk to the city. But I'm concerned about where that money is going to, and it's not our place, it's the city council's place to find that out. But I think if we're going to make this decision based out of the fear that Hooper's going to be in trouble if we don't do it, then we need to make sure that we have an understanding of exactly what's going on with our budget. And I know me personally, I've gone on to Transparent Utah and compared some of those numbers with numbers in our budget that have been presented in the meetings, and they don't match. So I'm confused over that. It may just be because I don't understand, you know, I don't have a full understanding, but I don't want to make a decision based out of just the fear. I think we shouldn't jump into something because this could end up being worse, possibly. I mean, I read the numbers, we're in the negative the first few years. That money, that big chunk of money is not going to be generated for some time, and it could be less if we do that CRA. That's why I feel like we shouldn't commit to doing that. Our recommendation.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I don't think we make judgments out of fear. And I was just basing my information off the data that Jared has sent me, that there's a never-ending list of improvements that could be made in the water infrastructure and the stormwater. And the fact of the matter is Hooper City became a city 20 years ago. And those subdivisions that are city infrastructure is now 20 years old. If we don't do something to maintain that infrastructure, that list is never going to go away. So I think that's just a reality of saying we have a lot of expenses that aren't, you listen to the budget meeting and it's like, Jared had a list of things and pick your top ones that might fail tomorrow type of thing. So it's not a fear thing. That's just the reality and the data of it. So I'm not saying that out of fear, saying, hey, we're going to go bankrupt if we don't give the city council all the leeway they need to do this. I'm just saying we have to balance, like you said, balance those decisions of this is a real need. We want to grow responsibly. We want to keep Hooper rural. I don't think that happens with West Davis corridor coming through here. I mean, just look at anywhere, find a spot along the freeway that's in anywhere, a city that doesn't have commercial all along that freeway. And I'm just saying that we have a chance to plan and choose what we want to come here.
Sure.
I'm just saying based off the data, and you look at other cities and what has been done, that's the reality of it. I want Hooper to stay rural as it can be, but growth's coming, and the only place left to grow is west and north.
So would you agree, though, that the reason why our costs and the issues that we're having are where they're at right now is because of growth? I mean, we've had, the more we build, the more the more it costs. We have to maintain it. We have to find some way to feed this animal. It's kind of like a vicious cycle. And 14,000 is the
So
number
you
they're
just, you
anticipating.
just not, so
I'm
what
not
do you
saying
do?
not to plan for it.
What do you do for those people that want to develop the property rights? Because we can't stand and like, I'm small government, like
I am too.
people's property rights are important. And so if we just say no growth because Hooper City can't afford it, that's not a solution either.
I agree. I'm not for no growth, but I'm for responsible growth. And Hooper is unique. Our infrastructure, our sewer, we are not like other cities. And I think we have to be smart. We have to take that into consideration. When you are a part of a community, you're not out in the boonies somewhere. You're part of a community. You have responsibility. Sometimes you can't just do whatever you want with your property. There has to be some sort of guidelines put in place. And I am for small government too, very much so. But I feel like you have to be responsible when you're growing. You have to take those things into consideration and not put yourself into a place where you're in trouble because you've allowed the city to grow faster than what it's capable of
So
growing.
did the fiscal impact study come back and say that we're going to be, it was a net negative or was it a net positive based off the study?
Well, I talked about what the numbers are and how those could change depending on if we
Right,
do
they
the
could
CRA.
change, but I could say, yeah, it's gonna be more. But based off the study that they gave us, this fiscal impact study said it would have been a net benefit to the city. That's the data that I can go off of.
But you saw in there that that's considering Weber County School District, the fire district, all of those places.
100%, and that's what the city council and the people that elected those officials can go in those, and that's their job to go and say, this is the development agreement that we want to put in place. Oh, we can look at the numbers and say, that looks beneficial. I look at Smith's. They're smart people. They don't want to build stores where they're going to lose money. Do they know what's going to happen in the economy? No, but I don't think they're going to set up to fail. And I don't want to set Hooper up to fail either. I don't want to handicap the city council saying, you can't do this, you can't do that. I would rather say, explore this, explore that, and explore this avenue and find the best possible solution if you find a solution.
And again, it's just a recommendation from us. We can't handicap the city council because we don't tell them what to do. So I think we're all in agreement that this is going to be a recommendation and that we can put recommendations as part of that recommendation. I think that's an okay thing to do. And the city council is going to take it and they're going to do what they feel is best. But as the planning commission, I agree with Sheldon. It's our job to try to plan down the road. And I think that includes having eyes wide open and looking at all aspects of this.
Well, and we gotta remember, Hooper it's not a destination city, right? Nobody comes west to party and have a good time. We're more of I guess with the highway coming in, we're gonna be more of a pass through almost, and we've got it on the east side of our city that borders Roy. So we're trying to take advantage of the opportunity to gain a little money. I mean, because let's be honest, if you put this in the middle of the city down on 59 and 59, it's probably a no-go because nobody's going to drive that distance to take care of or to consume commercial goods, if you will. But if we're on the edge, I think we have a shot to make some money for the city.
Any other discussion from the commission?
Can I ask Brandon a question? We discussed it a little bit in the work meeting, but as far as this was presented to the commission as a request to rezone, and we need it to be a request to amend the general plan because we would have to amend the general plan in order to do this. If we make a motion and we send it to the city council, can that be part of the motion or do they need to fill out the application to amend the general plan first and come into us and then move it?
Yeah, good question. And so I think that was answered by that ordinance that Malcolm pulled up earlier in the work meeting, and where it says, if a rezone application either potentially or does do something that would beyond what is currently in the general plan, then a recommendation can be made by the planning commission for the city council to look into that and to make that amendment.
Okay.
And so you don't have to, I think that this is a good example of why that's in there, because you can take care of it more efficiently versus saying, okay, hey, you got to go back and fill out another application just to come back here for the same discussion. So it allows you by ordinance with the rezone application to say, okay, if we recommend approval of the rezone, be cognizant of the fact that it may necessitate the reopening of a general plan. Take a look at that. If it does, they can take care of that.
Okay.
So I think you can't, that's just a long answer to that question is yes, you can do it based on this agenda item, and you would not need to have them come back just to fill out another application. If the city council, just to take it one step further, if the city council determined it would require the opening of a general plan, then we would follow all those processes that are set forth in our ordinances, and it may very well come back again for
Okay.
that. But just, you don't have to make somebody jump through all those hoops just to make that determination.
Okay.
So,
Was there, sorry, maybe I missed it. Is there any specific verbiage we need to say? And,
I think,
or does that ordinance just kind of,
yeah, I mean, you
or do we
could,
just
you
say
could,
be
you could.
cognizant?
You
that
could
it's-
say something like, you know, we recommend you take a look to make sure whether you feel like it necessitates the general plan being open, and if it does, move ahead that way. So something like that. I mean, the ordinance is covered. I don't think you have to be too worried about that. I mean, the ordinance is already there. I mean, and it covers you, so. Because the bottom line is if there are a few tools city council could utilize, whether they utilize a development agreement to cover the issues, whether they want to do a general plan. I mean, they can make that decision, and whatever they decide, the city can do it. So. Just my outside observation, I think everybody's basically saying the exact same thing. It's just, you know, we want city council to be aware of the things that we've talked about is essentially what I'm hearing. So I think whatever motion you make, you just, you know, maybe you ask them to listen to the meeting or something.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know how you put all of it into a motion, but make them listen to the meeting. I don't know, something like that.
Any other comment, or are we ready to? Good. I'll entertain a motion for a rezone request for Terra Strata LLC located at approximately 5,500 south, 4,700 west. The request is for rezoning of the property of the low density residential to commercial C2 and residential mixed use plan unit residential.
Okay, I will make a motion that we recommend approval of, sorry,
What you just said. Thank you.
I'll make a motion that we recommend approval of the, I'm looking at Bryce Clark, sorry, rezone request for Terra Strata LLC located approximately at 5,500 south, 4,700 west, with the recommendation that the city does not participate in a CRA, that the anchor store is completed first before the residential units, that the developer looks into both the PUD and the patio designation in our zoning, and that they consider doing a patio zoning with a 55 plus community for the entire area as a recommendation, and that they can look at increasing the density if they help fulfill that moderate income housing niche. Also that the rezone request is in compliance with all city ordinances, including if there's a necessity to apply for the developer to apply to amend the general plan.
We have a motion by Commissioner Prince.
I'll second.
We have a second for Commissioner Prince motion from Sheldon Greener. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
We will now move on to the citizen comment portion of this meeting. Just as a way of information, you'll be allotted 3 minutes. You do not need to state your address when you come up to the podium. Please state your name. You have 3 minutes to make comments on anything that wasn't already discussed on the agenda. And so at this time, we'll open the meeting for the citizen comment. No citizen comment. We'll now close the citizen comment portion of the meeting and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second. Oh.
We have a motion to adjourn by Commissioner Greener and a second by Commissioner Prince. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.